Possibility booklet of the 37 practices. Is there anyone who needs one?
Good morning. So for our opening prayers this morning, we'll do the 37 practices of Bodhisattvas. Okay, is that better? Okay. Page number 1. I'm sorry, starting on page number 2 in English. Namo Lokeshwaraye. While seeing that all phenomena neither come nor go, you strive solely for the sake of all beings. Supreme Guru and Protector Chenrezig, at all times I respectfully pay homage to you with my body, speech, and mind. The perfect Buddha is the source of all benefit and happiness, arise from having accomplished the true Dharma. Since that depends on knowing the practices, I shall explain the way of the Bodhisattvas. Having now gained this great ship of freedom and fortune, so difficult to find, in order to free yourself and others from the ocean of cyclic existence, listen, reflect, and meditate day and night without distraction. This is the way of a Bodhisattva. Attachment to loved ones churns like water. Hatred for enemies rages like fire. In the darkness of ignorance, one forgets what to adopt and what to avoid. Abandon your homeland. This is the way of a bodhisattva. When negative places are abandoned, disturbing emotions will gradually decline. Without distractions, attention to virtue naturally grows. When the mind becomes clear, certainty in the Dharma arises. Live alone in seclusion. This is the way of a bodhisattva. Family and longtime companions will part from each other. Possessions gained with effort will be left behind. Consciousness a guest will leave the guest house of the body. Let go of all worldly concerns. This is the way of a bodhisattva. In bad company, the 3 poisons grow stronger, and the activities of learning, reflecting, and meditating decline, and love and compassion are lost. Give up such companions. This is the way of a bodhisattva. When one follows a true spiritual friend, faults will dissolve, and good qualities will grow like the waxing moon. Consider this friend more dear than your own body. This is the way of a bodhisattva. Who can worldly gods, themselves imprisoned in samsara, protect? Therefore seek refuge in the three jewels, the undeceiving source of refuge. This is the way of a bodhisattva. The Buddha taught that all the unbearable suffering of the lower realms is caused by wrongdoing. Therefore, never act wrongly, even at the cost of your life. This is the way of a bodhisattva. Like a dewdrop on a blade of grass, the happiness of the three worlds vanishes in but an instant. Strive for the supreme state of never-changing liberation. This is the way of a bodhisattva. When mothers who have loved you since beginningless time are suffering, what good is your own happiness? Therefore, give rise to bodhicitta in order to liberate infinite sentient beings. This is the way of a bodhisattva. All suffering without exception comes from seeking your own happiness. The perfect Buddhas are born from the altruistic mind. Therefore, truly exchange your own happiness for the suffering of others. This is the way of a bodhisattva. Even if someone driven by great desire steals all your wealth or lets others steal it, dedicate to them your body, possessions, and all virtues of the three times. This is the way of a bodhisattva. Even if someone cuts off your head when you haven't done anything wrong, take all the negative deeds upon yourself through the power of compassion. This is the way of a bodhisattva. Even if others slander you throughout 1 billion worlds, in return speak with a loving mind of their good qualities. This is the way of a bodhisattva. Even if someone exposes your hidden faults and insults you in front of others, view that person as a teacher and bow with respect. This is the way of a bodhisattva. Even if someone you have cared for as dearly as your own child regards you as an enemy, love that person even more as a mother would her ailing child. This is the way of a bodhisattva. Even if someone of equal or lower status, driven by pride, treats you with disdain, respectfully place them on your crown as your teacher. This is the way of a bodhisattva. Though you may be impoverished and always disparaged, gripped by disease and tormented by spirits, never lose courage, but take on the misdeeds and the pain of all beings. This is the way of a bodhisattva. Though you may be famous and revered by many, and as rich as the wealth god himself, having seen that worldly fortune is without essence, do not be proud. This is the way of a bodhisattva. If the enemy, your own anger, is not tamed, subduing outer enemies will only make them increase. Therefore, subdue your own mind with the army of love and compassion. This is the way of a bodhisattva. Sensory pleasures are like salt water. The more you drink, the greater your thirst. Abandon at once all things that give rise to clinging attachment. This is the way of a bodhisattva. The way things appear is your own mind. Mind itself primordially transcends the fabricated extremes. Knowing just this, do not create concepts of subject or object. This is the way of a bodhisattva. When you come across things that attract you, like beautiful rainbows in summertime, do not regard them as real and abandon clinging attachment. This is the way of a bodhisattva. All suffering is like the death of your child in a dream. How exhausting it is to hold illusory appearances as real. Therefore, when you meet with difficult circumstances, see them as illusory. This is the way of a bodhisattva. When even one's body must be given up when aspiring for enlightenment, what need is there to mention material things? Therefore, practice generosity without hope for reward or karmic results. This is the way of a bodhisattva. If you lack moral discipline, you cannot accomplish even your own purpose. So wanting to achieve the purpose of others is truly absurd. Therefore, protect your discipline without concern for worldly existence. This is the way of a bodhisattva. For bodhisattvas who desire a wealth of virtue, all harm is like a precious treasure. Therefore, without hostility, be patient with everyone. This is the way of a bodhisattva. Even hearers or solitary realizers who accomplish only their own purpose strive as if putting out a fire on their head. Seeing this, practice with diligence the source of good qualities for the sake of all beings. This is the way of a bodhisattva. Disturbing emotions are destroyed by insight, grounded in calm abiding. Knowing this, cultivate meditative concentration that purely transcends the four formless absorptions. This is the way of a bodhisattva. Without wisdom, the other five perfections alone are not enough to reach complete enlightenment. Thus, combined with skillful means, develop the wisdom that does not distinguish among the three spheres. This is the way of a bodhisattva. Unless you examine your own confused ideas, you might look like a practitioner, but not be acting like one. Therefore, always examine yourself and abandon confusion. This is the way of a bodhisattva. If you are driven by disturbing emotions and talk about another bodhisattva's faults, it is actually to your own detriment. So don't mention the faults of those who have entered the great vehicle. This is the way of a bodhisattva. Concern for gain and respect causes conflict and a decline in the activities of learning, reflecting, and meditating. So abandon attachment to your circle of friends, relations, and benefactors. This is the way of a bodhisattva. Harsh words disturb others' minds and thus diminish the practice of a bodhisattva. Therefore, abandon harsh speech, which is unpleasant to others. This is the way of a bodhisattva. When disturbing emotions become habitual, it is difficult to reverse them with antidotes. Thus, the soldier of mindfulness wields antidotes as weapons and destroys disturbing emotions such as attachment the moment they start to arise. This is the way of a bodhisattva. In brief, wherever you are and whatever you are doing, always examine the state of your mind. Act to accomplish the purpose of others through constant mindfulness and awareness. This is the way of a bodhisattva. With the wisdom of the threefold purity, dedicate all the virtue gained from having made such effort toward enlightenment. Dedicate it to clear away the suffering of infinite beings. This is the way of a bodhisattva. In accordance with the words of the holy ones regarding the meaning of the sutras, tantras, and commentaries, I have written these 37 verses on the way of a bodhisattva for those who wish to train on the bodhisattva's path. This composition will not be admired by the learned because my intellect is poor and my education is limited. However, I have followed the sutras and the words of the holy ones, so I believe these ways of a bodhisattva are not mistaken. Still, because the vast deeds of bodhisattvas are difficult to grasp by simple-minded beings like myself, I beg the forgiveness of the holy ones for the mass of my errors, such as contradictions and inconsistencies. By the virtue arising from this, may all beings give rise to relative and ultimate bodhicitta, and thereby become like the protector Chenrezig, who does not abide in the extremes of existence or peace.
Tamba Chujin, those are the so. The need to run about Kazan, young Tatam Benjika, Tonti Tambo de Goni, Shure, Jonathan Muriantelina, the Ni Sim Goba Jazelani, the British the Ni Sim Gomso, that dear Karina, the got to put Maimba, Tambo 2 songs, their core songs, the young did it up in Tanto Tawaji, you know, come to the sun of Tantina, toilet, or that's him. You go on dinner, that's what you live for. Or that is the way to chop a guy on the Pango in the Hitchibos. Ah, what is doing? Many Tobatam starch boys, many starch boys. But I don't know about it. Oh, didn't pocket the heat, I didn't know we were. Then got us at the main number not so Yona young. These sugar seasons, that man or tired to be talked dogs on. The lady with the dog, teaching me the star London Bakatan, Dr. Johnson, and Chawabata, legendary, taking the riot. That she isn't in the riot. That was the charm he shaved the treatment of Charlo, don't need some gum, the tattoo with the Mamma, Thomas such words. Easy enough. Oh, couldn't he done chant on Razi, couldn't he? Karami over there, oh, come, Thomas and did the Lord didn't call Diary something. This is the laboratory, Dr. Zachi Morris. They have going some gum, go, young, ordinary. Cadino, Militati Mortis, Militati Moris.
So, Dharma friends, yesterday we already spoke about the first verse on the 37 practices. And so it says in there, listen, reflect, and meditate day and night without distraction. So what does this actually refer to? This listening and so on is, of course, not just listening, but it begins with hearing the teachings, and having heard the teachings, you understand the teachings, and then having understood them, you experience them by engaging in practice. So next then is reflection. You reflect on, for example, the 18 freedoms and fortunes, the 10 fortunes, and then there are 8 freedoms. So you think about each of them, and as you think about each of them, a feeling arises. That is reflection. And then when you meditate, this feeling must have already arisen. A real experience of that must have arisen. So then it becomes, in a way, internalized, for example, in a sense that even if you have nothing at all, if you're like a beggar, or you experience a lot of suffering, a lot of difficulties, then you would still feel, actually, among the 6 realms of samsara, I still have found a precious human body. And merely having found a precious human body is very precious, for example, in contrast to the animal realm. And then if you see it this way, then also your suffering will become much lesser. And so no matter what the suffering it is that you experience, who created it, and again we come back to karma. So in order to turn back this karma, as you mentioned yesterday, we follow the practice of the different stages of the path. We reflect on the difficulty of finding a precious human body, and death and impermanence, karma. And each of them is connected to the other. They're all connected to each other. And then, in fact, regarding just these, a lot of commentary teaching can be given. But I myself have not studied the scriptures so much, so perhaps I'm not able to explain it in this eloquent way. But now, ultimately, this line here, listen, reflect, and meditate day and night, ultimately, what is the result of doing that? What comes from having done that? What is in your mind then is that you recognize, I have obtained a precious human body, and that in itself already is precious. Because some people who don't recognize that waste away their lives. They drink alcohol, they are constantly intoxicated, and they have to beg for food and so on, not recognizing that. But actually, even if you have nothing at all, if you just recognize that I have a precious human body, you compare it to the animal realm, for example, then you already experience some level of well-being just by knowing that, how truly precious this human existence in itself is, regardless of what difficulties you encounter. So listening, reflecting, and meditating, it refers to understanding, experiencing, and realizing. And the result of that is that you always have in mind, you always recognize, this human life I have is truly very precious.
열 파열 다도 좀 열들었더니 다다다 잔이니 단 잡을는데 서자니 작합 바라들 다사니 다서 난 잔이니 들이랑게 니다니들라서 와다 난나게다 차당 제거래 이 차당 니가 그랬더니 샘도 남한나게 차당이가 적용을 되는 것보다 심하지 변해서 잔이 시바지 가리 나라 누가 타와지 자리시 오가라 찌아바지 니레시 티 딤바레라 자마리 딤바마리 이지기 조조요레 제대로 조고는 팀에 다른 조조에 하다도 또 당지야 진리들이 찌아데 마타바레 내가 마타바레 다니니 밤에 바레 제 강리 종아이들 지와 마마그랑나 저는 자세 니니가 냐바 생존을 차고 다들 강의 중간에 따라했더니 다들 지양 말한 거 하정 진치가 제가 좀 파마텔라서 가대 파도 못한 거에 별 가리자는 거에 다다 마찬 적신 보지 당시에나 다 보고만 보여래 데레 배샤요름 강바요래 다 파기만 이게 상무서는 법은 못한 지금 파기만 마셔고는 들이 강발 하덕자 배샤를 하덕자 그래 파기막이 살로 가려래. 미국도 다발이 집중해지니 나라 샤타버도 당 강바다 배샤를 하덕 다 그걸 자는 일이지. 샤버도 시당 치보더니 하저 제와 치와 들으시 시당지를 시당을 뜬사고 열니 봐서 괜히 치보 시당 조종지를 민족이 진짜 뜬사고 제와 뜬 치보도 시당은 열린 거래. 제일 뒤에 다다 자탑지 하자 제가 지금 진짜 차디어래지 민간이지 라그세너 그들이 자세 봐서 우리 자탑지 내 차지 답보다 못한 제게 양마들랑 거 빠지지 랑게요래 랑남 참제도 양마 자차지 다다 자탑지 도고 차지 다니 밤에 봐야 좀 레스 솔로다나 오 들이 텐데랑 다니 마다 봐야지 오 동문이 같은 다니기 밤에 말해 뒤는 자탑지를 시단지야만도 시단지나 드니 평밤에 놓받침 뭐 드리고 소소상이 냐와시 받을까래 시단지 이거도 옷판을 차려 그래 시단 제타만 받대 냐와 생부줄에서 생부주나 오 생부주를 기억만 냐와 생리 속에서 없을 라만하비 냐와 생을 내라버려서 말람다버려서 그래서 말람도 말이 띵고 고치 버리 생우리 살로 직장 다다 체인다 드리장 마마 그래 박차를 하고 샤디를 놓아도 참아 생부 탑가들이라면 백주세 비 빠치가 탑가라고 차대요 그 빠치가 탑가 가래 빠리한테 양자 샤는 거래 오 당이 밤에도 너는 차당니 같으니 종원이 들이 배는 심명이나 하절로 맞다나 잡아를 되면지나 들이 양쪽 나오는 게 차당니가 아니더니 샘들 강연 많이 봐 저는 제가 만나서로 체크하도 뭐 데이터 심심한 매만 야로요래 들이대도 걸림이 하모 데이터 차단이 같이더니 내가 주위에서 오 다니기 밤에 발에서는 파삽들로 그래 기다려 항상 있다고요. 데이터에 그때 파열빵고서 그냥 파열빵네 차단나 방편도 말 데리더라 파열빵사 말랑 레칼이 되고나 난 차단이 대중을 했었더니 나다 잘하시다 당함이봐 이나 착신해봐 니 이제 착신이 상태를 저토고 그래 니네들 상태 토고 그래지 때려서 안 그래.
So then the second verse says, attachment to loved ones churns like water, hatred for enemies rages like fire. In the darkness of ignorance, one forgets what to adopt and what to avoid. Abandon your homeland. This is the way of a bodhisattva. Now, in a homeland, we often, what this really refers to is a place or a circumstance where we cling to something as belonging to ourselves. And that includes our perception of enemies and friends. On a larger scale, that happens, for example, between different countries. And on the inner level, it refers to our personal relations to so-called enemies and friends that we develop either attachment for or aversion for. And both of these thoughts of attachment and aversion obscure the mind that is actually like space by nature. But they obscure the mind, and they obscure the mind because we believe in their reality. We cling to their true existence. This is how it is. So actually, what is an enemy and what is a friend? We think that whoever harms me is an enemy and whoever loves me is a friend. But if you really think about it, is this really something true or not? Actually, this is not true at all. Even in this life, for example, your best friend may turn into your worst enemy. Various conditions can arise. And the strongest love is impermanent. Happiness is impermanent. So enemies and friends in this life are actually uncertain. And for this reason, they need to be equalized. So first of all, to do that, we need to understand, where do those enemies come from? Who are they? Actually, in a previous life, they were someone who has been extremely kind to us and who has loved us very much, like a parent or a friend and so forth. And while they have loved you very much, you have treated them badly in return. For example, how does that happen? For example, there is a very rich family with a lot of children. They have a lot of money, they have houses and so on. And then the parents approach death, and before they die already, the children all fight over their money and their house and who gets what. So how do the parents feel about that? They feel, until now, our entire life, we cared for them. And now they don't care about us. All they care about is our money and the house. So they're like, they don't care about me. They are like an enemy. So then this perception arises. And all of that love that they have had turns into resentment or hatred. And in fact, the stronger the love, the more profound will be the hatred that then arises. Now we speak about this kind of critical object, which in that sense is our parents, for example. We're not talking about like small moments of anger that come and go, but often when love is very strong, that kind of love is what becomes this deep hatred that we develop against people, and that is then carried on into the next life. So we can be certain that anyone that we deeply hate or hates us in this life, an enemy, must have been someone who has loved me very much in a previous life and has been very kind. And then, on the other hand, there is those so-called friends. And who are they actually? In fact, they are our karmic creditors who come to take our wealth and our life and so forth. They are those male and female karmic creditors who take birth, for instance, as in our family as our children. In fact, our family our family members have been our enemies in our previous lives. And our enemies are now our friends. It always goes around like that. So if you really think about karma, you can see that even in this life, first of all, enemies and friends are uncertain. These relations are impermanent. And that's the reality. These things are really uncertain. So therefore you recognize, actually, there is no basis of me getting angry at anyone at all. If I get angry, there certainly is no benefit in that. It only creates harm. And at the end, it leads to birth in the hell realm. What is the hell realm, actually? It is the manifestation of hatred. It is just like a film that is projected for you to see. This hell is created by your own mind. And so also some lamas and so on have said that it's like a dream, everything is like a dream, but this could really lead one astray, because then people might think that, well, if it's just the mind, then it's not a big problem. It's just like a dream, it doesn't really exist. But this is not how we should see that, actually, because the hell in future lives and this life are exactly the same in nature. Also, this life is only the natural projection of one's karmic imprints of the previous life. And this is the nature of all the 6 realms of samsara. So all of these imprints are stored in the mind, just like pictures that have been taken by a camera. It's all there. So whatever picture you take, whatever you film, that is what will become projected. So it all is the fault of attachment and aversion, which obscure the mind. Just like when you're breathing on a glass, like a glasses or like a mirror, then it becomes like hazy. You can't see clearly. So just like that, those thoughts of attachment and aversion obscure the mind. Or just like pouring different colors of ink into water, it taints the color of the water. So what that means is that you lose your wisdom, your awareness. And without that, you are ignorant as to the workings of karma, cause and effect, happiness and suffering. So actually recognize that these thoughts of attachment and aversion are false, they're not real. So if you recognize that, then you will see that actually it's all uncertain. These relationships of enemies and friends, it's all uncertain. And in that way, your feeling, these passionate feelings towards them will become much lighter. And even if you get angry, it will go away quickly. So with regard to abandoning one's homeland, now what that really refers to is not necessarily the homeland, because even if we go to a different land, we still have not abandoned our thoughts of attachment and aversion. And wherever we do end up is also due to our karma mostly. So it's not really about abandoning the homeland, but it really is referring to abandoning the faults of attachment and aversion, especially the attachment to one's friends and the aversion against one's enemies. So what this really means is that we must cultivate love for all beings, seeing them all as equal.
그래서 자니 이때라 이것으로 차바숙지고 변하는 거 보다 정말 아주 뛰어치 모여래 자도 졸라잖아 이제 뒤에서 먹었어네 자 니도 또배 빠오 자는 피다니래 상다 매지 빠오는 빠오래시 피가리 딱그 삐지경은 이제 말이 반 잡아리는 잡을 좋다고 그래지 석피가 아까가 아니지 놀러 또 저도 보통 들이 텍스트들이 찐 텍스트들이 거를 타리오래시 대리 답을 빼만 보여 다진도 타고 빠고 니 돈벌돈 가로더라 그 정나요 바다 정나타지를 보고를 차치 보여 너 보이 나 되지 보디가 삼모다는 때에서 지바 총도 돈 탑가래 보디가 저요래 다보리진 낭초요래 바다 카이세 초리 타말라도 논초로 요시 장문에 뭐 차지해서 저와서에서 총도 그래 이 당용 장을 어떻게 보고 집에 제거 가래 어떻게 만냐면 이사래 린차상 부르스 점아도사 소소소 조바고사 파르도서 바도 냐미 지사래 보고 배제다로 살면은 이 단지 밤에가 이 당용 장을
Now, so regarding these enemies and friends, normally we have a very strong attachment to our dear ones, like especially our children and our spouses. We love them very much. And then we have an aversion against our enemies. Chikden Sumgön had said, when the one who realizes enemies and friends is a hero, or like a daka, a hero. So basically, when also Milarepa, for example, he's a renowned Mahasiddha in this world, and how did he become that way? Who really helped him? Who really benefited him? It was actually his uncle and aunt who took everything from him, all his wealth, and who abused him. It was really due to that condition that he ultimately became liberated from samsara. And there are many examples about that. And so then that quote by Chikden Sumgön goes on, and then when you realize the nature of friends, the dear ones, so they are all dakinis. So basically all become dakas and dakinis the same. So normally those near ones, dear ones, for example, our children, we are very attached to them, and we think that this is my child. So this me is there. So what can we do to reduce this attachment? So when you think about what does this child actually do to you, actually the child is like a karmic creditor who comes to rob your health and your food and take all your money, and in the end it takes everything from you. So if you see it from this way, maybe the attachment gets a little bit lesser, and you see it in a more equal way. But then, of course, in the end, you still have to take care of the child. But how you should see it is that the child is my way to practice. The practice, in particular, the 6 paramitas. Through the child, I can practice generosity and discipline and patience and so forth. So the child supports me in practicing the 6 paramitas. So in this way, we should see the true nature of enemies and friends and make them all become equal.
Thế tổng chí xuân bà dùng ý bằng về những mong rừng trình rất năm những mỹ bề nghiệp đó là phải rất ba tăng bề chú là mỹ sĩ chế ủy bà thì bà giả sĩ là những số ủy bà là sắp ủy bà nang ủy bà sang ủy bà sớm nhiều sắp ủy bà thì có cảm xúc là nhiều mà ta sẽ đi long bà để cho ai là cái là lệ cái thế cái chức năng mà lệ của nó sẽ dùng mà để nang sắp ủy bà để做这个세미나다 거기 차당이가지 소소만 한 거 차당이가 많고 있냐고나 들 남지 것들이 세들로 차는 거요 제들이 샘지대에서 라왕 타고 그래 르바 당배 출연시켜 샘으로 차는 것들이 시작지형을 다시래 신뢰로 차는 거래 땅 용지 다다닝이 밤에 바래 제라들이 지들나 사포트 다닝이 밤에 베는 참아니레스 참 파마 맞이와 적자요 말이에서 들이 사바치미 지들나 지들 내용을 들으라기 sembrava 통들이 나게 샵지요래 들이 코바는 들이 난 잘해서 다 나와래서 참 통통통 된 다시네 더 상상 몸들이 되라 들이 랑게 생기 용디지 색사제 용디지 공부도 또 요래 에 루비네요 딸리가 직접 뱅아들리가 직접요 말이 가라야 도공을 하지 연구요데 어디니 겁들지 배박하냐 말 셈이나 고속콜레가 제대로 셈쩍지 많은 거지는 들이 장식이들이 삼바다 hin지 조가 내라서 와서는 감는 성능들이 때문에 로도 콜라를 시바 자동 총코를 시바 말하면 사도 시바 니 가지는 그런 공니 셈곰들이 니 이어메 가지는 공자 지시바요 사바다 hin지 정전들이 야미 차대래 대외 낭 셈이 맞죠 니 루이 바고가 소나 랑게 지하마사 레그 고갑 요인 줘봐요나 애들이 주라 다차지들라 손음 삼점 잡아요.
Then verse number 3. When negative places are abandoned, disturbing emotions will gradually decline. Without distractions, attention to virtue naturally grows. When the mind becomes clear, certainty in the Dharma arises. Live alone in seclusion. This is the way of a bodhisattva. So this seclusion here, seclusion has an outer, inner, and secret aspect. And of these, the outer seclusion is the least important. And outer refers to just the place where one finds oneself in this life, wherever one takes birth according to one's karma. And this is where one is and has to live. But what's more important than that is the seclusion of the mind. And that means when the mind is secluded, it does not fall into any biased views of attachment and aversion. And not doing that, the mind will be naturally in a relaxed state. And then already the mind has gained some freedom or seclusion. When the mind is relaxed, then wisdom arises. And that really, in this relaxed state, is really a state of shamatha, or calm abiding. It is a state of great equanimity, wherein all enemies and friends are recognized as uncertain and equal. And so being equal, what that means is that everyone is a friend between enemies and friends. Everyone has been a parent in a previous life. So love arises for them, immeasurable love arises, and then one just remains within that state. And in this way, naturally, the mind has attained freedom. Wisdom arises. And now, since you live in this world and have various activities to do, now then if you have an opportunity here and there for some retreat, for some isolation, you can do a retreat, a short retreat for a week or a month and so on, and just take that time to meditate, calm abiding and vipassana, so insight into the nature of the mind, and meditating in this way, then through the practice, the enlightened qualities that are already inherent in the nature of your mind will reveal themselves. And so even if the body is secluded, that doesn't necessarily mean that the mind becomes secluded. So you have various activities to do. But me, for example, I don't really have anything to do, and I also don't have to even make sure I have enough food. It just comes naturally. But then also, one thing I could do is just take it and sleep. But actually, then I think about those people who provide it and so on, and how hard they have to work. And then when I think about that, then naturally compassion arises, and naturally patience arises. And so in this way, actually, everything, any circumstance becomes practice. Milarepa had said, then when you walk around, walking becomes circumambulation, and eating and drinking becomes a feast offering, and, 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 So So that is to meditate day and night. Everything becomes practice. That is, if you sustain mindfulness, awareness, love and compassion, then everything becomes practice. So it's more important for the mind to become secluded and not the body. And of course, if you have an opportunity to seclude your body in retreat, then you can also do that for some time. If you have the karma from a previous life, then you might have an opportunity and that the wish to do so might arise. Then you can take that opportunity and maybe practice in retreat for a week or so. And the merit of just that even is inconceivable.
남영들 고학생 잡세를 인고를 남영들 류남영 나왕요 말이지 또 샘남영들 샘남영 가래리 다 점점 열매제 주입대 강제나 라미 그들이 샘들은 무종외변 남도 가리제 디지털 장전에 변하지 따뜻다 가다 가라사용나 따지게 자기 밤이 바대서는 남영이 대 남도 총총 지어대 담지가 뭐 차이도 그래 깝더니 제시 봐요나 막 작은 손을 제시 싫어서 생고 초박까지 계속 하고는 초박들이 하고 좀 들을 많이 봐 차들이 남인 매지발 생데 나보고 있어 봐서라 진실한 게 뭐지 내 탑들이 남인 남인 방제 그 작은 손을 잡아랑 잡아들 잡아 차용 거래 뒤다वर 뒤내 나와요 하고 이제 시바사원 내가랑지 대 오늘 들람이 깁전 패려고요. 깁전 가래리 단디는 뉴mon과 탐지 하고니 샵칠로 샵칠 이게 봐요 봐 차고 봐요는 줄럼 탐지를 봐요 봐 이는 이제 방와 이피집들 봐 가르쳐서 줄럼 그 라지 따도 제타바 변가 손으로 라지냐 통타바 봐요 봐 대탐지 라미 그 수남 차용을 깁조르치 바테들이 룽아게 심지나 만세가 핀바다 되어졌다가 벨로가게 좀 칼라사산 책들을 보고지야 벨들이나 같이 라미 장자서도 됐지 남영들 다들 깁조르테 딜레가 제세대 담지들이 르게 사다지와 차앙을 룽아 이순 사와랑지 네 비아 차앙을 제체 담지 대만의 벽에 숨어들이 깁지 좀 쇼를 차르데 듣지랑이네서 다들 대시 봐요 되는 랑지 그 참아기와 패는 거래 네 남인 집안에 심파에 바빠 쪼대래
So I should say without distractions. So this term without distraction, that is actually a term that there's something very profound, a profound point to be understood. Now, when it comes to the distraction on a physical level, and often we don't have much choice over that. But then when it comes to the mind, that's more important, for the mind not to be distracted. So what it means is that whatever you do normally, when the mind is unmindful, then whatever you do, you just follow whatever thought arises. So for the most part, we don't actually recognize all these thoughts that constantly arise in our mind, and we just follow them along. For example, when we are eating and having a conversation, we are completely unmindful when we do that. And it is these subtle thoughts that place this imprint into our mind. If you have mindfulness, on the other hand, even if you're among 100 people or so, if mindfulness is very clear, the mind is very clear, then you will take notice of anything that is happening around you. So it will be your sensation of what is happening is very clear. And so that is a state of non-distraction. Non-distraction is to not follow, not pursue whatever thoughts arise within the mind. And you just continue to sustain a state of mindfulness. That is non-distraction. And when the mind is always non-distracted, when the mind is not distracted, it makes no difference whether you are with 100 people or by yourself. It all becomes the same. So whatever happens, happens knowingly, with clear awareness. You take notice of whatever happens around you. And when the mind is clear in that way, then naturally whatever you do becomes a virtuous practice. So what is virtue actually? What is virtuous practice? It begins with recognizing self-grasping and the afflictive emotions. And within such recognition, wisdom expands, compassion arises, and it comes from a state of mindfulness. So then you are mindful in all of your activities. And if you're mindful in all of your activities, then just naturally you will abandon harming others and you will engage in activities that benefit them, in altruistic activities. So this is what naturally will then happen. And so it is now, for as long as we see this duality of self and other, this is how we sustain mindfulness. And sustaining mindfulness in this way becomes a natural accumulation of merit. So it means then that with mindfulness, whatever you do with body and speech will become a conduct that doesn't cause any harm towards anyone, any sentient being. Whatever you do will naturally become beneficial. You will take notice of your surroundings and the people around you and their needs. For example, when there is an elderly person, you would assist them and so on. So naturally, your conduct will become really pure in this way. So this is virtuous conduct. That you engage, that when we engage in body and speech, and it comes from a mind of mindfulness. So, as Milarepa also then had said, everything you do becomes virtuous. And he said if the mind is in such a state, the 10 virtuous actions naturally arise, and the 10 non-virtuous actions naturally dissolve into themselves. So if you're always mindful, basically whatever you do will naturally become virtuous. So that is the main point to be understood here in terms of without distraction, to always sustain a state of mindfulness.
단지 탐체는 류전종 항납시 정부 보르데 조디 상노단데 this 류전종 항답을 하거나 라지 그들을 집게 하작신고 침보요래 제 라지 그들이 자강고요래 제 마신들이 이런 로번 잡시서 손자들은 항에 인정 잡기라 하장까지 신차 침보요래 제와 침보래 제와의 용띠 얘네는 제가 마다바 마고는 이쪽을 먼저 나도 갔더니 라시야야는 것 하장을 너무 잡지 문종고요래 제가 다만이 마다바 하고 그래서 문제도 좀 뒤에 사실 가을에 연양이매서 로바트 동네 사람을 매가서 이래서 강에 뛰어 마다바 하고 그래서 마다바 하고는 탐치 마다바를 해서는 들 마다바 샤로로 때려서 양당도 뛰어치 소 탐지를 뛰어와서 신사치와디 다열 놀러 좋은 날 락버는 이 뛰어치와디 탐치 지나 마다바 거지나 락버는 이를 뛰어치는 오 다유모 데미시 도와자면 다들 그바치고 something 뛰어치로 딱바 차는 거래 대마지를 들이다다 인줄 라왕 비백감했더니 다 놀러 좋으나 다마다 탐치 양당 다디걸 마다바고 마다바고 가지고 깡바로 신호고 깡박선 거요래 마다바 마고는 디 마다바 시시드 들이다 딱한디니 틱딱 사보가라 소소는 되면은 양당도 소화하거든. 초화신이 지금 벌써 저런 초화신이 지금 벌써 저런 so that during charging really just something or is.
Then there's verse number 4. Family and long-time companions will part from each other. Possessions gained with effort will be left behind. Consciousness, the guest, will leave the guest house of the body. Let go of all worldly concerns. This is the way of a bodhisattva. And so in this verse, what's most important to reflect upon is consciousness, a guest, will leave the guest house of the body. So the body is like a guest house. And normally we cherish this body very much. It's our biggest attachment. And when you understand that the body is just like a guest house, then this attachment will naturally and somewhat diminish. So normally it is because of this attachment that to this body and to our dear ones, that it is like our kind of our like subtle channels and everything becomes dried out. So we are very attached to our families and friends, our spouses, in particular our children, because we love them very much. And of course, in general, love is a good quality. But still, it is impermanent. And if we do not reflect upon impermanence, and we don't remind ourselves of the fact that everything is impermanent, then one day when all of that suddenly changes, people often are so overwhelmed by their suffering that they commit suicide. So then a very intense suffering will fall upon one. So it's important to begin with, to understand that all of that is impermanent. Also, this is in the old days when the Buddha was alive. The Buddha also, there was this place made where there was no suffering. And then he encountered this place that there is actually suffering in the world. And in this way he understood impermanence. So everything is impermanent. That everything that exists is impermanent, and also our loving relations. So if you think about it again and again, then even though there is love, actually there will be less attachment. And so it refers to anything, our possessions, our wealth, but in particular people that we are attached to, that we love very much. In fact, if you really remember impermanence, your love for them will actually get stronger, because you will then think that one day this will all not be anymore. This is all impermanent. So what's the point in constantly arguing and fighting? I will not fight. I will respect them. So in this way, if you remember impermanence, actually your love for your companions will become stronger and more stable. And if you don't know that, then anyways, one day you will have no choice but to part from them, because everything is impermanent. Our relations and our wealth and possessions and so forth. So here at this verse we have to reflect upon impermanence. And it is said, through impermanence, like repulsion with samsara arises, a sense of renunciation. And it is said that this is like the legs of meditation. So often, even though we know that things are impermanent, we usually don't think about it. Nobody really thinks about it. And I was like that myself. So there's this prayer, a supplication where we pray, please grant your blessings that death and impermanence arise within my heart. So it's very important here, this reminds us here, this verse, that we must remember that the impermanence of this life.
Zata ji pala samte yo ba de samte ri jewa ri ji jewa de nam jewa ke sen de yong jin yo le de yong jin le che le chong samte ge yong jin ge nam ji ri de nu mo ba tam che de ne bien la de xie dang de du shi le zhe ge yo le cha pa de ne de ha ne de 중심으로 저기 요 말이 중당 중지마 저기 요래데 강리 될때 삼제들이 초발들이 삼제들이 요래 거기 대외 중강리들 오탕 치마라시래 오 도보디 동바 데라소바 스종고 치마라시니 차진와 되게 하자도 같이 뭐요래 들이 도보드가 자와 가리 난 세우 세와나 오 따뜻하게 보여 냐도 내 토크 요래지 얘는 세부제 와도 삼제 요나더니 세부 삼제 됐다고 저는 스종도 다 봐야지 두제리지 타풍적으로 풍부성 풍부하게 또 말했지 난 삼제에다 보자면 쭉 세버리잖아요 다다한 것으로 로빈지 담배치 강을 돌았지 지하수만 냠들어서 디아치는 도고레스 조금 다 말했지 두제리지 방 뭐지 라게 제신 빵나 빵나 따내봐 가래 요래들 무엇든 치마를 속로서 와시나 데이터를 빌리셔서는 람상tin지 루지슨 바탕 데라소가 차고지 버렸지는 루지슨 버지 안에도 하자 동네요 대기 지스들이 다다 양이 손을 동고 요래 대외는 차바지 중지 뭐 차바지 맞지 중지 뭐들 삼지의 차관이요 각가지고 삼지다 보자 이유는 로를 로도를 zupo들이 다다 노하우를 센터 로를 센터 삼지에다 로로 삼지지 3년도 로를 내와질라고 요래시 세상이 3년도 로는 되냐와라고 요래 지세그랑 좋고도 저기 노도 차로 그래 뒤에 따라 사람들이 삼지지 답하잖아 들세 속다치마들라 저 치노나 치인데 말람다 그래 삼네 제일 장난 진짜 참아 참게 하고요. 너 런도 가리나 이게도 참지 체인데 말람다 그래. 뒤들 삼로 딴 거야지.
And it says family and long-time companions will part from each other. There is great love that we have for our near ones, dear ones, our family and friends and so on. And that in itself actually is a good quality. Now, within the mind, this feeling of love is by nature a good quality. And in general, it is said that among all the afflictive emotions, the worst is hatred or anger. And in particular, according to the tantric path, it is said actually that attachment is not considered to be a great fault. In fact, it is kind of a mix between qualities and faults. And the reason is because attachment arises actually from love. So it is related to love, and therefore it is not regarded as the greatest fault. But then, when that love arises, we love a person, and we begin to cling to the true existence of the person and kind of the way we label them, the way we see them. And we see them as very beautiful. We think about their face, for example, and then we develop an attachment to that. Now, that is actually extremely harmful. If you develop an attachment that is based on an outer appearance, the body of a person, that will lead to a lot of harm. So why do you really love that companion? What is that love? It should be something from within the mind. And if it comes from within the mind, then these kind of companions can spend their entire lives together. So this is the kind of love that you want to hold on to. The outer body is nothing you can hold on to. It is impermanent. It is a compounded phenomenon. It is just like a pile of dust, actually. It's like a pile. The aggregates, the 5 aggregates are like that. They are empty. So when you hold on to the love within the mind, however, then that kind of love will eventually transform into bodhicitta. And so then in this life you will remain companions, and in future lives you will go to Deva-chen together, to the Pure Land. So here think, this body is impermanent. It is a compound. what is the harm in not abandoning the attachment? If we don't pay attention to that, we will continue to cling to the true existence of how things appear to us, and then that will stay in the mind when we die. And then when we die with such an attachment in the mind, then there are stories of people taking birth as all kinds of creatures in the bacteria and so on in people's bodies, and they experience a lot of suffering there, and after that they are plunged into the 3 lower realms. So there are many great faults, many great difficulties that come from attachment. So even though it arises from love, we have to separate the attachment from the love and then hold on to the love. And then you will be able to spend your lives together. And even if you do that, the body will not remain. It's like a guest house. So what goes on is not the body that you're attached to, but it's the mind that you love. And actually what we call the Pure Land of Dewa Chen is just a place where all those with love in their minds go together to. This is the place where all those with love meet. And what we call hell, that is the place where all those with hatred go together. So it's all really comes from the mind. Therefore, hold on to that feeling of love and not so much the outer appearance of things. And train the mind in viewing these outer appearances as impermanent and just like a dream. And if you can do that with a person, for example, then you can do it with anything else, for example, with your possessions and enjoyments and so forth. Whatever it is, you train the mind in remembering the impermanence and the dreamlike nature of everything.
They might to buy things not just on driven Nadia Tosto, part of the smart already gives out not just Domalan, Rinpoche, the Toyore, the Rectaya and Tongue to Dana, Tongue to Dana, your married. Yena, just somebody, the artist of Cocority, Joe Corstomatonity, that are late to be shaken, Joe Corstomato, Merigona to some songs, yeah. Cherbo toza bogono zibago nolo bogono jabaton mara biso teta mani chendia ngandi lo chala tri lapar de chala cha chibo tam jita de haja chigo chibo yore koshi botar bela tri tata la tam je kujina haja chala cha chibo rintang jarde mi ba la jin te usondo la kozon ta chide kodala pro yore Carry Zabro Monana so the Hakam Shimba Chimbo there take a monk or a same to take up the day and 3 Jaladi Namde, Ning Balim, your pella. What if the lodging your Sabachi Beshama Bosa, Beshama Bosa, Shatsaditini, Beshadam, the Donna Lilamantini. Nagan Toya, your teta or Mamboshe, save the color China, save the Sarah Tongi, Bavana Chotovani, Kanga China, Timdo, Nakite, Mameliti, Porsamati, but Dinin Kai already. Think, Kari like Yitachi was Tachi City. Yikamura, Yika, Listan, what also birds on. In Gabriel, it is like a Jinche, last of a flag, how did you say that chocolate? Kari, flag goes a die over it. Much did on my machinery. That 2 days and da maybe got a jinjat like that short. So target that them flat at a woman now in my days on the Jinche Pango was a jewel, Jinche Pango at Chatham to one, Jin Pango at them. Somehow a jar chocolate damina, that chocolate, teach him at the car, Chile. Little Jinchi had to tell us that Chishu, Shannon sent it in Changdo, the little Union Kayopetri, nor not to draw some of the Lutamistry. 사도 돈을 벌었다. 선쇼를 어바면 쭉 진짜 봤대라고 차고래. 근데 야적만 남다버리. 대상부터는 잠지들이 좋고요. 대회들이 카드 체들이 진행하는 거니 답시스만 도요래. 네 말이 센데서 인가지고 작을 만남 같은 창고를 때려 양자용도 싸놓 따니 오 체들이면 남다버리지. 체들 매바가서 되는 만남 담을 때 저지다 보잖아. 다들 받아 좀 당일라서 다 보잖아. 대 소리 용진도 올라 정거용마도 다들 다 보자야만도 없으나 대라고 지나 이 핀받침을 해야지. 제대로 땅좀
So it is said that if you wish to know what you did in the past, and look at your present body. This life is just like the oil in a butter lamp. And whatever you have obtained in this life is the result of the merit that you have accumulated in a previous life. For example, having obtained a precious human body is the result of even having taken the Nyingna vows just one time. What Trikten Somgen also had said, keeping a single vow leads to the result of attaining nirvana. So of the 6 paramitas, for example, if you just take a vow of practicing a single virtue, the result of that is to obtain a precious human body. So whatever you have obtained in this life is what you have obtained due to previous karma. So we can't change that around too much. Or extend it and so on. But then for the future lives, we have to think about, in terms of karma, the right causes to create. So if you want to have a precious human body again in a future life, you have to practice ethical discipline. Or if you want to experience a long life and harmonious companions, you must practice patience. If you want to be rich, you have to practice generosity. And now, especially in this life, there are many objects that we consider very valuable, very precious, especially when they're expensive. Then we have a strong attachment to our possessions. And now, for example, this is also why we make these offerings to the deities of all these jewel ornaments, because we consider these things as very precious, as very special. And so actually, regarding that, it is said in the King of Aspiration prayer for excellent conduct, don't be attached to those things. Our attachment to those things is very profound. And if that remains within your mind, then beyond your death, this attachment will be there. And there are stories of where beings have taken birth in an evil way, in a negative way, together with those objects of their attachment. For example, there was this story about a retreatant who did accumulate a lot of money, and when he died, he took birth as a black spider who was then who ran after like the money, the notes, and so on, and staying with the money. And actually, people could actually see that spider. It was something that you can see. So when the consciousness leaves the body, it is just like the body is like this vase filled with water, which is the consciousness, and wherever it breaks, this is where the water will be spilled. So this transition between this life and the next one is a very critical moment, a very crucial moment that we have to be very mindful of. And therefore, what's most important at that critical moment is to not die with an attachment to any kind of precious, valuable objects that you might possess, but before, for example, offer them up to the 3 jewels. And so now regarding them wearing these ornaments and so on, these precious objects, it depends on your perception too. If you are a Vajrayana practitioner and you visualize yourself as the deity, then actually it is said that it is appropriate to wear jeweled ornaments. There's nothing that goes against that. So if there is no self, no sense of me, but if you really have an awareness of I am Tara or I am Chenrezig, then there's nothing wrong with wearing ornaments. On the other hand, from the perspective of the individual liberation, that is not allowed. It is prohibited to wear many ornaments, and that's because here we are not meditating on the deity. Here there is a concept of me and a self, and from that perspective, it is actually said that ornaments need to be avoided. For example, also in the lower classes of Tantra, this is the case. Here we are not allowed to wear perfumes and ornaments and necklaces and so forth. But then again, in the Vajrayana, when there is really no self, then again it is okay to do that. So it depends on one's state of mind. But in any case, when we die, there is a great danger that we bring with us this attachment to our precious objects that we are leaving behind. And therefore, for this reason, it is said that before we die, we should let go of these and make an offering of all one's attachments to one's families and friends and enjoyments and possessions. And it is important to let go of all of that, and at the time of death, to only single-pointedly bring to mind the Buddha Amitabha. So this is the way we should be able to go. Because this life is just like the dream of a single night. Now we experience the daytime, the waking state, perceptions, and at night when we fall asleep, we go into a dream state, and then we wake up again. So this transition from day to night, every day actually, each and every day, we are in a way transitioning from one life to the other and then another life into the other. It's like the same process. We are day by day, we are transitioning from one life to the other. And it's very similar when we then fall into the bardo after this life. So again and again recognize that this life is really just like a dream. There's no point in making such an effort to run after all these things because all of this is not actually real. There is no point in holding on to all of these possessions. I rather hold on to the cause of virtue. I practice generosity, ethical discipline, patience, and so forth. These become the causes of birth in the higher realms. But whatever you have now in this life, nothing can be kept, nothing can be held on to. So in this way, this is what is really meant with giving up this life or letting go of all worldly concerns.
Sometimes he gave me but you drawing on just long so don't let that cover draw and say the put some of them the amount of some short share and they give it things on don't tell already you know drawing body draw the round leg left draw some was saying the you know leg around we were talking your development draw till tine so rang singing da sambata in Jesu para so me parque yo do yo do bata me tricer cosoram tri sang ge te so te me par ro yo le te me ngo tap je ko sang so te draw de bang 갖고 yo le le draw ko ina de drawing by somebody taught draw between drawing example drawing by be mara sao you know draw the text you by don't come somebody in get up with us the drawing by example you give it all in your door they are super in a song with your three tell that they got trouble 다 토고 쪼고지 가는데 다다 사바된 이제 니가 소탐질 사바된 이제 내고요 오 사바된 이제 강내 내는데 자부 쪼래 야, 마마이랑 그 상태를 제가 다다는 상태, 저 드레스 상태 토종시. 이 상태에 답고 자. 정정들 상태에 오 드레스 상태에 토고래. 조금 받을 때 주바고 살래. 너무 생부터 초화질들이 상태에 답고 자. 때려더니 해당된 유무 발라서 그렇게 주바고사 조티 메나 나비나 해당 말로나 나 해당대 대리요레시 해당 차도 센나 깔려나 아주 대리요레시 지 때려더니 잘라서 저도 당선나 야 어떻게 센나도 어떤 센나 하고 성시 때리 자상성을 했지 야, 대면이 사와 주바 강사진이 차도지 나 차도하고 좀스 조상분 한테리 데르데리 시차르들 차도지 그래 차도도 좀 치모래 상태 용진 치모 차도를 되는 도대 담아들이 잡으려고 그래 차도지는 들이지 조상분들은 차도 용진 거래 조기 말들이 시당의 세나 라서 문제인 거 그랬지 유무관은 문제 살이지 저랑 생부 초과했더니 들이 상태에서 조과에 답지 아야다 종이 밤이 봐서는 그지 랑 생부 초과한테 답지 아야 기체 뭐래 종이 바라드는 조바다 보자야 조상 보는 상태 답지 아야 대답을 제일들이 남들 쳤다고요 그래 들이 종이 봐서 상보를 주려고요 그래 베타와 제네들이 갖고 요래시.
So then the next verse speaks about abandoning evil companions, and it says, in bad company, the three poisons grow stronger. The activities of learning, reflecting, and meditating decline, and love and compassion are lost. Give up such companions. This is the way of a bodhisattva. So now, when it comes to abandoning negative company, so in general, it refers to a companion. When we just think about this life in an ordinary sense, then often it is through our companions that we develop very powerful afflictive emotions. And so what this in a general sense means is that don't rely on them, but rely on a spiritual teacher. But then this negative companion, often we can't really choose our companions because we get them due to our karma. Now, of course, everyone wants a positive, good companion, but that's not always what we get because it's also our karma, and often we have no choice but to be with them, and we can't abandon them all. So how we should think about it is that whatever that companion is, there is a way to practice with them so as to cultivate love and compassion and patience. So if there is someone who constantly hurts you, then first there's like some resentment, but then you cultivate some love and compassion, and then the resentment goes away, even in the other person. So this is the kind of methods, the skillful means that need to be applied here when it comes to avoiding negative friends. It's difficult to actually physically avoid them because it's our karma to be with them. But this really refers to the skillful way of transforming an evil friend, a negative friend, into a positive friend. There is two kinds of companions that we have. There is some that we love very much, and then there is the evil companion. There is those who are always, for example, very rude and just hurt us when they can. And these actually are companions that are necessary for us to cultivate patience. And if you sustain love and compassion, regardless of what they do, then this negative companion actually will eventually become a positive, virtuous companion. So you must hold on to patience in those moments, in a temporary sense. Now, in a more ultimate sense, Now, for example, a positive companion is someone who helps you cultivate bodhicitta in an ultimate sense. You love them. And so when you feel that through a certain companion, love increases, then you can consider them to be a virtuous, a positive companion. So you have a good relation of love in this life, and also you must have had that in previous lives. So now you have this loving relation. So you recognize then, through this companion, I have found love, and now I must hold on to love. Even just in the slightest way, in any kind of circumstance, cultivate love, increase that love. And then if it is a negative companion, then this companion becomes a support for you to cultivate patience. So it is a feeling that arises within you in both circumstances. This feeling of love, and then you hold on to it. And then that feeling of patience when afflictive emotions are being triggered. And actually, if we don't have anyone who triggers them, we can't really eliminate them too. For example, also myself, for instance, if I had no one who triggers my anger, then the anger would just stay there. So then the anger stays, and the jealousy stays, and the greed, the stinginess stay, and so on. And then something happens. For example, you have a very precious object and someone breaks it or so. You feel stingy about it. You don't want to let go of it. So then think that this is very well, because now I'm recognizing my own attachment, and also I'm purifying this karmic debt, this karmic creditor that I have. And or it happens when jealousy arises, for example. So then see it as a good thing, because this person has helped you to recognize the jealousy. And so this is how you practice with each of the afflictive emotions. So when they're a positive companion, normally we develop an attachment, and then that attachment often leads to jealousy. So in that case, in terms of positive companions, recognize the fault of jealousy and the quality of love that is to be sustained. And so in this way, the jealousy becomes transformed. Otherwise, if you let it go and you are attached to the person, then you get jealous, then that friend may also turn into an enemy. So it's important to recognize, based on positive companions, when this feeling of jealousy arises. And then in terms of negative companions, mainly we need to recognize those feelings of anger and stinginess and so forth. So that feeling that arises within the mind. On the one hand, when it's a positive companions, it is the love and patience that you should recognize and sustain. And if it's a negative companion, then it's patience and so forth, especially patience that needs to be sustained. So it's basically love for positive friends and patience for negative friends. And if you just sustain those two, you will be able to take any circumstance onto the path. So if you're able to practice in this way with any kind of companion, positive or negative, then that would be the best.
다 차도 매발도 큰 가르치지 소소 차도 받기를 매 차도 이제 차도지 제일 문제 야랑들이 답에서 소들이랑 되니 소조들 야 도지 강정은 좀 배사 돌아당 아 단다게 말이 답에서 어디 신나래 오 신나시바 같이 소는 라그스나는 연결이 수나미는 같이 소나 비도요면 다 디마저고 그래도 다 콩 디신나시 와래 신나미지 때로 다 파치다 야보지나 대처 하면 당처도 못지 졸업도 못지 대체랑은 왜 콩까지 약고치는 콩을 똑똑똑똑 오, 다 나라더니 나를 다리지 나의 저 데려더니 시당 차도가 나라더니 지도 신랑 나라더니 지도 신랑 나라더니 오, 다 나요 받은 저도 통금을 말 나요 다 되지 데려더니 다지 니모랑도 쳐사지는 거기 맞아 도상 버리죠 시당 신나 차도 제 참지 문제 되고 다 조사버리도 다른 양이 진짜로 와서 이제 들 사바도 거들 뛰어치고 소한테도 어디든지 남지게 조람 남지 쳤고요.
So in this way, recognize each and every afflictive emotion that arises. For example, if it's a companion that causes a lot of harm to you, then first of all, an afflictive emotion arises in your mind. But then if you hold on to this affliction, that is what really causes the harm. So see this person as an opportunity to recognize the afflictive emotions. And if it's a friend that you love very much, for example, if you love somebody very much, you love them, but then if they go around talking to other people, then immediately you get jealous, and then you don't like that. So instantly recognize here, oh, I'm being jealous. But it is through this other person that I'm able to see that. So now I need to let go of my jealousy. Let him do whatever he wants. I must let go of my jealousy. So in this way, you recognize your own jealousy. Or, for example, if there's two companions and a couple, and one always accumulates a lot of money, and the other one goes around spending all that money all the time, all over the place, then the person who tries to make the money will feel resentful and feel like he's wasting all that money, and then we never have enough money. So that person will naturally feel a bit greedy with their money. Doesn't want to let go. But then actually, no matter how much you try to collect, if you don't have the merit, it will not accumulate. And if you do have the merit, it will just naturally accumulate. So this is, again, an opportunity to recognize greed or stinginess. Or you might feel in another situation, I'm always trying to be so nice to that person, and no matter how nice I am, they never recognize that, and they always treat me badly in return. So first you might feel really frustrated with that, but then actually, again, what you can recognize here is this sense of me, this I. I'm always being nice to them, and he is never nice to me. So here is this sense of I that arises. And it always arises from every emotion, actually. You can recognize it when you get angry because of me, or you get jealous because of the I, or you get greedy or stingy because of the I. It all really comes from the sense of me. And these people also help us to see that, because normally we don't actually see that. But in those circumstances, it arises, and then we have a sign of this I still being there. And so this is how we can take all of these circumstances as the path and practice with them in transforming negative companions into positive companions by recognizing our own emotions of anger and greed and jealousy and so forth. And all those positive friends that we love very much, they help us to sustain our love and increase our love. So in this way, everyone really becomes a support to our practice. And basically, if you sustain this awareness of I must sustain love by all means, then you will be able to take any circumstance in your daily activities as the path.
Oh, money, baby, home. Oh, money, baby, home. Oh, 다들 지속과 강직되는 이바세 절신 용대 양자들 편저에 신이 동바랑 그 장기반도 바자세 라니에서 저는 도상보상이 많이 개발돼 저한테 그 피니 가다소소라는 애들이 삼바던 희지 야치바도 도상보 애들이 뉴모바 le nyumo wa chiwa trogi ba ti pinur ma de sai tro zambo ni ba ni wa sena ben tro zambo ye tin na ngtli la ma san ge shi ni chjin de tin ma shi na de de la chapa na shi ba xie dang da cha do jin de zhong wu jo lo mang bo le de zuo nang rang ge tin se ge pin le de le这空明把他们上坡的就是特别的我呢，这里上么桌上坡的就有的，光的看清不来的。
Then verse number 6 says, when one follows a true spiritual friend, faults will dissolve and good qualities will grow like the waxing moon. Consider this friend more dear than your own body. This is the way of a bodhisattva. So, as before, now that's the difference between positive or negative companions, but what makes someone a positive or negative companion is something that you can just really see for yourself by looking at your own mind and seeing how those people affect your mind. And so if through a certain person your love and your compassion increases, then you can consider them as a positive companion. But then if afflictive emotions increase, then it is a negative companion. So we cannot really judge that from externally seeing, but you have to see within yourself how this person affects you. And often, even if there's a general positive relation, like disciple follows Lama, for example, which is in general positive, but then if the disciple doesn't know how to follow that teacher properly, then they might develop many afflictive emotions of attachment and hatred and jealousy and so on. And then all of that becomes actually a fault. So you have to apply a method to transform negative companions into positive companions, so that basically in the end everyone is a positive companion. So this previous verse is very important.
the Maripani W or the Maripadi Rang Sing with the Rosanche Mahamagon, the Tela, Dadi in Yum, but you take W or they take it in Yum will let Chepa take a knee Chipati. Salazar was the gymnastic driven about the amazing young taking Niba, Chibadi, Niba, new Mobile, Niba said, the unity gave Tamchelet, Shab Jungle, this is a Shirab, Shirab, and Jatim, Shirab, and Jatin, Shirab, so 들이 담에 출력 시랍되는 체납설에 좀 들어서 하고 들이 죽든지 기긴 탐지에 되는 채널 나타 너는 용띠를 하고 기긴 탐지 하장사 아치 머리 때때리 이발도 저별 르마 이 성거 사와 탐지 랑라 피바다 이나 데베 탑 몇째 대와 주는 기긴 탐지 되는 로니라 되는 것도 내가 단타서 내가 저거 기긴 탐지다 쳐버렸지. 전부 이런 것들이 데이터가 쌓는 들이서도 자체 뭐 차물이 들이서도라는 게 기긴시 받아서 쳐버렸지. 다다 왕거 감들이 다른 시에 버리지. rinpoche 시했던 노블라서 공체 첨보될 rinpoche 말이 책들 rinpoche래. 샵집 책을 들려 동하고 요래 들 고대들이 샵을 잡아 들이 이게 들이 샵집 요래 들 책들 개비신이 탐지 기기 탐지 자체 보래 때려지니 들 인적들이 기기 탐지 체지되지 날때는 타고 요래 인적들이 함데 들이 다음에 출력을 되는 들이 기관이 지와 체압을 냠상한테 너는 샵에 성체 대회는 들기비신이 탐지 같이 뭐래 대랑을 루다 대는 강자 책은도들 대다랑을 루 자체 상고요 루등이 전에 도로니 바타버리 쭉 같이 딱 잡는 야토그 말이 민도 같이 레고가 특성들이 도자고 마법 가리나 수저 정토그 용말이 랑 레상 버지고 거마도 들이대에 레비시는 게 용띠에 자리들이 지와처럼 내가 다도 니들이 시합적도 이긴 삼지 자치물이 상디로디 이제 하장 같이 모래
So the faults will dissolve. Now, what is this fault here that dissolves? Now, we all possess Buddha nature, and Buddha nature is the cause of awakening. And even though that is our nature, we are also obscured by ignorance, two kinds of ignorance. And mainly, it is the ignorance that does not recognize that one's own mind is actually the Buddha. And so not recognizing that, we develop a perception of me, and from that, afflictive emotions arise. And this is what obscures the mind, because obscuration. So it is the karmas that we accumulate with an afflicted mind that leads to all of these faults here. And often it even happens that we want to engage in a positive virtuous activity, and then still the result turns out negative. Because the root of all fault is the afflictive emotion in the mind. And knowing that, if we follow a true spiritual teacher, wisdom increases, our knowledge increases. So there's two kinds of wisdom. There is the worldly wisdom and then the transcendental wisdom. The transcendental wisdom is the wisdom according to the Holy Dharma, and this wisdom is the knowledge that understands past and future lives and karma, cause and effect. And the worldly wisdom is given to us by our worldly teachers who teach us various things about this world and sciences and so on. All of them good qualities in this world. So all of these teachers are very precious. And now, therefore, with whatever you do in body, speech, and mind, it must become a skillful way of accomplishing the benefit of yourself and the happiness of others. And so this is accomplished in this life because we have followed our worldly teachers who taught us everything about this life. And on the ultimate level, from a Dharma perspective, we have a tool to create happiness temporarily and also ultimately. So basically all the teachers in the world are very precious. And if you if you bring this to mind, then your mind becomes vast, becomes open. So remember the kindness of each and every teacher. For example, during the empowerment, we have said this precious treasure that you are setting forth today. It was in one of the repetitions. So this precious treasure, normally we consider a precious treasure as precious gem, a jewel and so on, gold, something that's very expensive. But that's not what's actually precious. What is precious are these words. The words are really precious because through the words we can understand the meaning and wisdom arises. Actually, the root of wisdom really is the words, the letters that convey, that impart knowledge, and then wisdom increases. So therefore, all of the teachers are very precious, whether they are worldly or Dharma teachers. Through worldly teachers, we have a way to achieve happiness in this life, and through our Dharma teachers, we have a way to achieve happiness in all future lifetimes, from lifetime to lifetime. So in brief, what we gain is wisdom, and therefore all the teachers have been very kind. And so here it says then, now consider them as more dear than your own body. So what's really more precious? Is it a teacher or your own body? Normally we think it's our body, of course, but actually the body is just like an old pair of clothing that you will take off one day. So now when you have it, it's there, but you can't really hold on to it. Often we try different things like medical treatments and rituals and so on, but in the end, what happens to the body is up to one's own karma. And often, for example, even a protected king is assassinated and no one can protect them when it's their karma. So ultimately, it's all up to karma. And so in any case, the qualities that we learn from our spiritual teacher are qualities that we bring with us from lifetime to lifetime. And they will lead to temporary and ultimate happiness. So this is what the teacher gave us. And that is why all of the teachers should be really seen as very precious. So it's very important to always keep that in mind.
Rawang Jakab Tanchi Rame Detang de la Sam Tangi Jakab Timo Yomata, Mamang Ladici Yoma, Tonsolma Wanyam the De Tapa, Marin Nambantato, Chilo Lambantato, Karin, Rawang Yula, Tumopa, Dita Region Gotama Tanchi, Tagishin Jet, Matin Digishin, Jitin Maloglatini. Data will Kashi Lumbakashi, Dongi Karido, Kangi Karido. Oh, dear Gini Zangin is elevated our Chakayori, Territory Melogati, Batata, Dami, Tozi, Last of Quantity, not Chile, Tanti, Water, Chimartin, Justin County, some of Tesam, the said the method Kasivan. Oh. Chile giving Tamsila Pekadinchi was on the Jacob is to play over. The Jacob Samtapa or Jacob the Dishilitary, Raran Sosokiti, Mal the Midot, Mal Jacob Yakuchimazons, oh, Mal Persecutor Tamsons, to what you say you are married. Mimang Tamasam of the death of Theatre regained from the material Meloglatin, around Mount Jacob Tamil, they were carrying some of the Consuming Chimore, sentimental Catholic Chagayori, Nivala taking Jeti, take you to
So that's actually something that you really have to think about. Now in this world, there is countries that experience freedom, independence. So think about the well-being that many people experience in those countries and how the countries have some stability and people there experience some well-being, and many hundreds and thousands of millions of people can live together harmoniously. Many different races and religions all can live together. in freedom and with discipline. So all of that is due to one's country and the teachers and so forth who taught people the ways of the world. So without that, we wouldn't have that, you can look at some other countries, the difficulties that they experience. So in our place, in our country, for example, we have science developing, people living together peacefully and harmoniously, and all of that. And that is because there is this country that protects their people. So if you think in this way, then your mind becomes open just like a blossoming flower. And you remember the kindness of the teachers and the scientists and so on. And those people who care for their country. And so when you think in this way, you also will be able to really develop some concern for your country. And recognize that often the reason why I experience trouble is because I haven't felt that concern before. For example, some people, they blame, for example, the police, I'm in trouble now because of the terrible police. But that's also actually a wrong way of seeing it, because they are also necessary so that people can coexist in harmony and peacefully in a country. So just through the worldly ways, the worldly tradition, I mentioned that yesterday, people can experience some happiness. And so therefore, all of these teachers in the country are really extremely kind. So when you develop this sense of gratitude, your mind will open up just like a flower. So that's very important.
Sir, Lumare, Dr. Muchutam Maiba, they took a teeny tongue, jumping the Yacha took your Mary, Lang you won't what it, that's all in that pension was Sawatri tongue, Chumutang, just took your Mary. They don't the Yaman to come in, none laid him dig in their machine. Telatini. This had told you take a legend, they narrow the team of powder, only legend, the son in some of Tanizuna, or Ranji, the Telico, Malari Pesongana, they get it to a short in charge, the dictator on the next start, Ranji, Mizango, Prince Safety, but Terminal Yoba, Daginia, but that's a Zongton, Ranji, the Jata, the Tabi Chulok Tamsilitini, no same deja. There is a low ministry jumbling by the triple hung down the she chargery. They are half on the rank gigi jibber maiba. Look, Tamji Yaboris. There is in Sozo and Yams and Becami, the Sozo and Yams, the Dutcher general, Tamji Cocotti, Gigi Cocotti, the from Duyopa. Three of the Archman tongue to your. The reality that low needed body, the young some Tarotang, yeah, the Timber carry, yeah, Jacamino carry though, yeah, the young children really young, that's the nature of the two times the shots of Takita, young time to the gum, some rotanga, the new sharp cototia, you're a territory. Low need gave it in Tamji, the rank support the Tashi. Give she in the oh, that's the Mataba told over it. Give she needs a habitual young day. That you want to give a terrible moon to it. Tipacadi young glory. Better set up in the Tagasumari. Rikpan number and Chayang Lopti. Sani shadow the turn of don't chase. Gary, see, they'll keep on my journal. Just smartly, the young dingy, ranky. Just my jaw and all around you, but a tickle Jalaya boy, Jujana, Sunny said the Rantali chocolate. Tea, some semi-yorita. Pamachipoji, Patam Gelatin, Kachi, from Yakochaviore. Kachi, Kachi, Bedroom Gelatin from Dumeba. Don't the book pillar. There's a young hammer of dog by the castle at the from those yes, you're the way it is Hajati, Jum young after the legend being a machine, the milk to push a cocoa or child, you're the said to work in Italy. 대화 집에서 타고 뭐 등에 다들이 타고 요 말이 저 록니가 지는 니 맞다 나와야 봤다 그래 이게 참실 그 거기서 못하면 이 하장들 리드 기기 있었다 아주 어떻게 기기 있었다 아주 버리죠 기기를 혼동제 용띠 이제 샘남는 거요 시작 남발 혼동는 인지 대로요래 뒤따라 로를 또 감지 용띠 쪽대지 요거는 대를 하죠 로를 또 삼지라지 그지 시락다 힘이 차쪽대로 때리더니 용띠 이런 미움보라도 대중 용띠 참치 로를 레좀 착다도 하고는 좀비 슬와 메바 티티님 로요래 좀나바도 대동나바도 삼로다는 근데 대회를 레좀 시바 답을 때는 레좀 시바 저기 말로가 때는 안 친구들 이래라서와 시바때서만 니가 손대 줘라 가리니가 너나 기기자를 집어 짜지 버리지 롬좀 짜지 버리지 대상으로 땅들이지 신이 담바랑을 lö자 기버도 맞아서라지 대는 기왕이 기와 체랍라 대용진지 나온다 용구가 대시라 그러니까 이 탐지는 초과했다 기기리지 또 탐지는 초과를 기기시리지 롱이를 기기리 삼 드리용지를 그 같은 거요래 대라고서 때문에 딱그 소속성도 도달지는 대라고래지
And then even if we have these outer conditions of like discipline and laws and so forth, that alone will also not be sufficient to really create well-being among the people in this world. And that is because the mind is still most important. We still need to be able to eliminate our afflictive emotions. So if we're not able to do that, if the afflictive emotions and self-clinging remain in the mind, even if we have outer rules, we still will not experience any happiness or well-being. And that is the fault of not understanding the nature of karma, cause and effect. So that is why when the Buddha taught, he first taught those teachings on karma, cause and effect. So a person who really understands karma, then as Milarepa had said, it is like, for them it is like whatever they do, everything becomes naturally the 10 virtuous actions, and the 10 negative actions will dissolve into themselves. So that person will naturally be a good person. They will treat others with love and with kindness and with respect, and they will keep all the laws and rules. They will have an ability to equalize self with others. So this is how our mind is protected through the holy Dharma. But when these two systems, the mundane and the Dharma, become a union, then really this world is like a Nirmanakaya Pure Land. So if you understand it in this way, then this is really how it becomes for you. And now it's not just your own personal teacher that you should remember with gratitude, but all the teachers in all the religions, you should see them as good. You do your own practice according to your own tradition, but at the same time you see all the others as good and you treat them with respect. So with that state of mind, you will feel motivated to learn new things. You will see everything as good and positive, the two traditions as good and positive. So when you think about this again and again, now, for example, when you think about the world, the worldly ways, imagine, for example, how would it be without that? Or how would it be without having a country and those laws? How would it be without any of the religions? So think in this way and really analyze faults and qualities over and over again. And in this way, you develop your own wisdom. So now when we come back to this question, what's more important, our own body or the spiritual teacher, then we can see after such reflection that the teacher is really most important, more precious than our own body. Because our own body is a compound and impermanent, and it will perish in the end. But then the qualities that we have learned from our teachers, we will bring with us from lifetime to lifetime. It will stay with us continuously. Sakya Pandita had said, even if you were to die tomorrow, learn something today. Because whatever you learn in this life, even if you don't turn out to be a great scholar in this life, you still bring that propensity with you into your future lives. Just like a jewel that you bring with you, or you store it so you can retrieve it later. It's like you store a precious object, and later you can get it back. So it's just like that. There's many signs of that. For example, in one family, two siblings have the same parents. One of them wants to study and is a very good student, and the other one doesn't really want to study. And even if they try, they don't really learn much because they are very ignorant. So the first one wants to study because in the previous life already he studied. And if you study, then wherever you go in your future lives, you bring with you this foundation of learning already. So this is how the Buddha had explained karma. And now such a person then will be able to make themselves do well in their lives. So they will, for example, be able to accept any kind of difficulty and know how to create the causes of happiness. Person who doesn't understand karma, they will be completely blinded or ignorant in this life. They will not be able to overcome any of their difficulties. They don't know how to create happiness. So those two systems are both important. They're both like the sun and the moon. And we need to respect them equally. So what is precious in those teachers is the words that we receive from them, these words of knowledge. These are the qualities that will remain within our mind and that will develop a mind of wisdom and compassion. And then wherever you're born in the 6 realms of samsara, that quality will remain just naturally. You will experience happiness to whatever the extent you have cultivated wisdom and compassion. And likewise, if even just the slightest afflictive emotion is within your mind, it will lead to many faults and difficulties. Karma is unfailing. So that is what needs to be understood here. So now when you think about the various forms of sentient beings and their various experiences of happiness and suffering, it really comes again back to karma. And that is what we learn from our Dharma teachers. Worldly teachers teach us about sciences and so on. And so these two systems need to be a union. So in brief, all the teachers are very precious. The learning, the knowledge that we gain from them is what is so precious. Because that is something that you will bring with you from lifetime to lifetime if you really think about it. And so if you understand that, you will see how the teacher is really more precious than one's own body. So actually, the most supreme companion, the best companion to have is the teacher of both traditions, the worldly and the Dharma. And when you understand that, you will be motivated to learn things and you will respect them all. So this is how I personally think about it.
배는 저 차워지 미나 저 차워지 차롬도 저서 고용 많이 빼세요. 록이 강나지 이제 삼바다 진짜 저거 레고래 기기 집까지 장이나 진로버 기기나 기기 지에서 삼반 힘이요 봐. 기기는 어디가 로마 망고 로마 yap고 차온 거요래. 삼반 힘이 밀어 소소를 롭죠 용지지 요나요. 밀어 파 잡고 요 말이에요. 데려지니들이 대 강리들 삼바다 힘이를 지니들이 삼바다 힘이 치보는 ram지 다들 총총 차대요. 이빙으로 같이 칠러 다들 ram지 총총 차대요. 다 매번 또요 매딱지 강하면에 이빙으로 오늘 며칠 시합 ram지 중요요래. 오 고난바 말이지. 홀삼이지요 말 그 주시요 말이지. 기왕 가마를 그 삼바다 힘을 공들이 며칠 강리 랑코베 좀 이렇게 다 침보디 춘직din 가르치는 돌되게 심진 принцип을 토토고 말이지. 대선 거예요. 호와들 이 담초 공포주에 자롬니들이 독자 호로 걸고요래. 호들이들이란 게 레사 다 레들은 남밤이 봤다 다른 로아를 둬서 차신 차와든 레르티는 정도요래. 이 마시는 들이 너를 다 좋아하나 빈도 친구 준 거 말이 좁다고 말했어.
And the next verse, number 7, says, "Who can worldly gods themselves imprisoned in samsara protect? Therefore seek refuge in the three jewels, the undeceiving source of refuge. This is the way of a bodhisattva." So this being imprisoned in samsara, so what is the root of samsara? It is the self. And even though all sentient beings possess Buddha nature, it is that temporarily, due to this self, that they have become solidified beings, like ice blocks that are floating on the water. So the root of samsara is that self. And for as long as we consider ourselves as most important, no matter what we do, whether it is a dharma or mundane activity, we will always have a mix of faults and qualities. For example, it is like if there is no hot water, then there is nothing to melt an ice block. So whatever of the two systems or traditions you follow, the basis that must be created is one of love and compassion. For example, a teacher. In general, all the teachers should be seen as the same, but then, for example, you have a science teacher who teaches their students with love and compassion. And that teacher will have a lot of students, and he will be able to really impart his knowledge onto the students, and they turn out well. If the teacher doesn't have any love and compassion, even though he has all of that knowledge and good qualities, he cannot impart that knowledge upon their disciples, the students. So basically, if there is love, if love and compassion are strong, then just naturally the sense of self will be weaker. The stronger your altruistic mind, the weaker naturally your self-grasping mind. So in fact, it's a natural thing. There is no need to think too much about the meaning of selflessness and whether it exists or not. If you just cultivate an altruistic mind, then just naturally this sense of a self will disappear. For example, one might say that, oh, he's not a Buddhist, so he doesn't have love and compassion. He doesn't know the Dharma. But that's completely wrong, because he still can have compassion if he has habituated to that in a previous life. So this prison of samsara is the sense of a self. And if that is very strong, then whatever you do in the world or the Dharma will not protect you, will be of not so much benefit. So samsara is like this vast ocean, and the beings within it are like ice blocks floating around, and they bump into each other, and there's conflict, and they go around in circles. So we go around in circles accumulating karma, and then karma ripens in the 6 realms of samsara. Even the slightest of karma, the most subtlest of karma, ripens. Everything comes from karma. And people who don't know that consider themselves as most important, and therefore no matter what they do, it is of not much benefit, and they cannot really be protected.
제 라는 코스는 좀 직진이지 직부 추진인데 다 조제바 강자 대상치 직부 추진인데 직바체 동일이 직을 가지는 직을 강을 땡기려 되나 또봐 그봐 니봐 딱봐 대라서 같은 직진 추제에 뒤에는 다 조제는 뒤에가지는 인디비주얼이 메타버는 나중에도 지양 쪽도 말이야 지양 라인 쪽도 말이지 이제 붙이기는 띵제니 대외지 직진이 이제 붙이기는 단지 우리 단지에 이제 붙이기래서 그런 정상으로래 동네 연구를 쪽도 말이지 직진 사이에 세계 쪽은 라에서 옛날에 직진바 참만 단지 우리 직진바 차대 요리 단지 기본이 되라 직진바 하소 그래서
Then next here then it says also the worldly gods, who can they protect? So this term worldly here, so literally in Tibetan it has a sense of like something that installs fear. So first it means like subject to disintegration, and also subject to fear. And so fear, because when we consider ourselves as most important, then we are subject to fear and suffering. Naturally, when you consider yourself as most important, that will always lead to a lot of fear, and that leads to suffering. And that is mainly due to being controlled by the 8 worldly concerns. We run after fame and gain and happiness and so forth, because we consider ourselves as most important, and we base our activities on that. But then actually all of that is impermanent. And in this way, acting in this way, we cannot protect ourselves, nor can we protect others. So for as long as we follow these 8 worldly concerns, considering ourselves as most important, we will always be subject to fear, and that leads to a lot of suffering. And we cannot be protected. And so those worldly gods, they are gods, but they are worldly. And worldly means that for as long as there is self-grasping, strong self-grasping, one is a worldly being.
그래서 잡을리니 딱가사가리지 고치고 좋아하고 때까지 또 되게 다좀 말 다좀 것 다작하는 말 다좀 것 그저 다지 다보지들이 이나 마마 대통령 마티라 그래서 다 파티 동에 거리 마타바랑이 내려지는 것도 저과도 동에 간지 연구래 대다 운직이 배 대려지리 최디 디기대도 왕탕 탐지야 마타바레지 이상 스마그 데라 디다고서 다시 요말이 기와처럼 망고를 들이고서 동의기죠 동어떤 동의기죠 타와 주적성 사지가 동의기를 달고 그래서 상진의 다지니 상송 예전 생각과도 생각을 하지 내려서 돈다고 대바송 때는 건초 잡도 자세라는 얘도 건초시 봤어요. 건초지 봐라도 지금 말해서 건초시 봐대 사지 주다게 뉴스를
So, for example, there's a lot of people in this world who constantly protest, and there's a lot of conflict, and they often do it with this intention of, I want to protect my country. They want to protect their own side, their country, and so on. But then often, if that does not agree with others, they don't really consider anybody else, then that leads to more suffering. And then again, everything is impermanent, and there is fear. So that's like a worldly example. And now, even though in a temporary sense, it might lead to some experience of well-being and power and so forth, it still is impermanent, and there's a different result that will ripen in a future life later on. Because then the cost that they have created then will create more and more suffering in all of their future lives. And that is why there is no end to suffering. And so therefore, the Buddha had said what we need to separate from is the cause of suffering. And Buddha actually in itself, the term is in Tibetan Sangye, and Sang means to have cleared away the dualistic grasping itself and other. Gye is vast or expansive, and then the mind becomes vast, like space, and you see the true nature of the mind, and that is called the ultimate truth. And so here it says, so seek refuge in the three jewels. So who are the three jewels? The three jewels are not just one solid deity or some god. The three jewels are the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha.
내는 상계 희박강리 사지 좀 되더래 콩 시랍제 버리 시랍제 바르듯이 말해 대 시랍제 바르듯 가리도 생성이래 유모바 족대 ramji shibadire parado sabato tiba chele tiri tato shapte parado sambad tiri dabelin ta sanji shapte bod dolo sanji ni kare ta soso rana getri sanji ge soso rana ge delu deshi jumba di tong ha kona ni lelo to so o moso ta che di lelo to tiri chodo dong el to go yorechi to dang de ba di ha mo je kang de ko to go de ba le je de ma shi 당보 다음에 변함지 마시 데려다지 니차 데려다지 니 차다 띵이 뭐 차와 유모 제트지도 세리 제트지도 차를 도와줘도 유모 쪽을 이 차로도 다 차송시 오 뒤에 다다고 뒤에 탈고는 다고 그도고 되마 레좀 되게 약고 치고도 뒤에 다좀 맞지 다들 답도 놓지 다좀마 제리 지피로 쳐보다 지나 이런 세고대로 하고 다지 니베 하고 그래지 대 하고는 돈 담고 되마 그것도 되마 레좀데 체비 바지 하고서나 돈 담고 되마 세지 삼세지 오다 추담다지 다돈 담고 되마 시합도送걸 라리서 되면 뒤 사지 하고 너는 사지 가리 사지 좀 뒤지 시합도 팔아도 말이지 쭉 가리 님바지지 그래서 저기 사람 매봐 대하고 또 너무 또 많이 대하고 성잖아 저 라라라가 sana 오 대서 강가 잡는 말로 오 디사지까지 사지 그 마셔는 사지送了 되네 예미진이 사지 좀 되더니 다버도 자탐제 좀 마속 갈 때다 잡을링을 되니 개누이거래 개누이의 취이래지 사지 지송다 개누이의 취이는 제가 되네 본조선 제가 뒤에 뒤동대 또 정탈라 들으라는 서가 돌아들이지 다 소함이 잡으지 그래서 강을 잡나 말아야지 가려면서 말이야 다부 저 본조선 잡설 레좀리 하거나 레좀리 하고도 오 라게 데베 저 하고서 사티고 능이 저 하고서 너무 바빠 저바고 다제진 지와처럼 내가 토리 되와 먹어지는 덕고요지 다tuk 사지 고만 먹어지는 덕고요 어떤 사람에 배잡 자꾸 조선래 제가 다직디 가면 가리 딱 기능이 말이지 사지 요 말도 기능이 바지 샘때 내반지도 하고래 기능이 바지 샘때 사지래지 세균이 그 남칼이 보면도 사토리 주면도 그 사제 용지 가르쳐서 말이지. 기니바디 내맘에 다음에 동도 그요. 다음에 막 동대 저 타오는 뒤에 알아니 그도 내맘이 있잖아. 그래서 도담대 바람이 나랑서 하고 나랑 사람이 또 서로 같이 봐는 나랑 서로 상계하고 요래지. 대를 뒤지 또 상계요지 정도 요래지. 너를 잡다 고쳤으면 다 가리다 기지 말이지. 그래서 뭐지 샘트 상계지. 디 사계가 동다들 가리시고 요래지. 속도 담배 취해지. 그게 뭐 사마 상계면 잡아야지. 그래서 따따따따해서 거긴 송 담치 톡사지. 다따름 고쳤으면 찌까리. 그래도 뭐 찌고 줬으면 참교래지. 대다를 하고 리미기들이 그들이 뭐 참을 때봐. 뭐 들이 추리 시제로 들이게 말하다는 게 요래. 들이 문님을 하려. 딱 문님을 하려. 꽉채만 요청을 하려지.
So the Buddha, Dharma, and the Sangha. So who is the Buddha? So the Buddha is the Buddha Shakyamuni, the conqueror. And he is one with great wisdom. He has perfected wisdom. And now how has he perfected that? He has transformed the 6 afflictive emotions into the 6 paramitas and ultimately has perfected the perfection of wisdom. And now he is renowned as one with great wisdom in this world. So then who is the actual Buddha? Actually, when you realize the nature of your own mind, your own Buddha nature, then you realize the Buddha within you. When we realize that, then we become liberated from all suffering. It is to see the ultimate truth, is to see the Buddha. But for as long as we have not realized that, we need to rely on the relative truth, because we have not yet understood the workings of karma. So in the beginning, we did not recognize that there is no self. So that led to the perception of self and other. And that then led to the arising of the afflictive emotions. And there are many afflictive emotions, many subtle afflictions. There are 84,000 different afflictions, and then each can be combined with each other. So each of them has 84,000, so there are so many. And these have created the ice block-like state of the 6 realms of samsara. And this is what we must become freed from. In order to free ourselves from that state, we must first understand the relative teachings on karma, cause and effect, well. And the essence of that is to understand that we should not consider ourselves as most important, but should cultivate an altruistic mind. And on the basis of that, you will naturally and truly understand the nature of your mind. You will naturally understand the non-dual nature of self and other. So first, if you truly understand karma, cause and effect, and you develop the 4 immeasurables, then naturally you will realize the ultimate truth. Wisdom arises naturally from that, and that's also explained later in the 37 practices. So this is what the Buddha had realized. This is the perfection of wisdom. And then what is the Dharma? The Dharma consists of the twofold truth. There is the relative truth of unfailing karma, cause and effect, and the ultimate truth of emptiness. And so the Buddha had appeared in this world, and he taught the Dharma. And it is through the spiritual teacher that explains that to us. So it says before, in a previous verse, the spiritual teacher is the one who imparts that on us. So starting from the Buddha himself up until the present day, up until His Holiness the Dalai Lama, there has been a succession of Sangha in this world who explain the Dharma to us. So now, even though the Buddha Shakyamuni is not here, we have the Dharma and the Sangha, which is like the fruit of the Buddha Shakyamuni. So these are the 3 jewels, and whoever realizes the true meaning of those jewels understands or will be protected. And that protection is unfailing. And so how is it unfailing, an unfailing protection? It is that through the 3 jewels, we understand the workings of karma. Now we know, actually, now I understand that is the cause of happiness. It is love. I have to cultivate love. Afflictive emotions are the cause of suffering, so I have to give them up. I have to practice patience. And if you practice that, then in all future lifetimes, even if you say, I don't want to, you will be born in the higher realms anyways. And ultimately, even if you say, I don't want to attain enlightenment, you will attain enlightenment anyways. So that is the unfailing refuge of the 3 jewels. And so now, even though the Buddha is not there, there is the Sangha who imparts that Buddha's knowledge upon us, the twofold truth, which is the Dharma. So therefore, we should really recognize the Sangha as the Buddha. The Sangha's mind is the Buddha. Even though his outer form appears as the Sangha, the body is just material, like a substance or material matter. So we might think that, oh, this is just an ordinary person. He doesn't have all the qualities of a Buddha. But that's really not true, because it is through the teachings of that Sangha that we understand the twofold truth, that we understand that there is no self and so on. So he becomes like hot water melting our ice block. So if we understand the relative truth well, then naturally we understand the ultimate truth. Then you yourself realize the ultimate truth. You yourself become like a blossoming flower. You yourself attain enlightenment, become a Buddha. So how has that happened? It is through the Sangha who imparted that knowledge on you. So therefore he really is actually the Buddha in his mind. So even though he appears as the Sangha, what he teaches us with his speech is the Dharma, the Buddha's words. And that is why we should regard all of the teachers as really inconceivable, of great kindness, and as an embodiment of the 3 jewels. So the Sangha's body is the Sangha, the speech is the Dharma, and the mind is the Buddha. And if you see it in this way, then you will make no differences between them. There is no bias between different Sangha members. If you understand that, you will be able to respect them and feel devotion for all of them. And a pure perception arises from that. This is really how we can understand, even logically, that the 3 jewels really are our authentic or trustworthy source of refuge.
가장 공부를 했대. 다른 무슨 양이 죽어로 죽는 특이 양들이 막 가장 일도 막 하고 요래 애들이. 지가처럼 망불로 양들이 거요. 고는지 초디는 가리. 또 샘도 이런 것을 대화하고 요래지. 샘도 우리 대화하고는 이제 호흡 대화돼. 노화를 또 대화하는 성성적 등의 등에 포리스는 이제 등에 들지라서 등이섬 남하고 속을 요랬지. 등이 매번 대화치고 요 말이지. 사지 대화지. 호절 매번 대화지. 장 매번 대화지. 죽어 대화지 뭐 제일 롱거다 죽어서 암신이 되니 녀마다 와서 그쳐서 배tor다 타와지. 사지 용티 되죠. 사지 것은 그 용티지. 대다는 대화팀 호절 매번 대화 딴 초래지.เป็นคนละเดิมโชว์ยังไม่เดิมโชว์คนละเดิมโชว์อย่างตัวเดียวเดิมพอจะไม่เป็นเดียวอะไรเจ๊ไม่เป็นเดียวตรังไม่เป็นเดียวอะไรเขาเป็นเดียวนี่เยอะไม่ได้ไปสักเจ๊ทำเจ๊ตรงนี้เยอะสับปะสักกี่ปัตย์ตรงนี้เยอะสับปะไม่เป็นเดียวอะไรเดี๋ยวนี่โชว์สมติตาแต่สมติเจ้าเลยเดี๋ยวกินดูเลยเยอะค 답을 빼자 설정하다 자와 탐지지만 되고요. 기신이 탐지는 되고요. 빼지 차잖아. 자와 탐지지만 되고요.
So the three jewels, they are literally, in Tibetan it means the rare and supreme ones. So they are rare because it is very rare, first of all, for the Buddha to appear and for the Buddha's teachings to exist in this world, and then to remain within this world is even more rare. And then it's more rare to have practitioners who follow those teachings, and then it's even more rare to find someone who practices them in an authentic way and their entire life and so on. So it becomes increasingly rare. The Dharma is very rare, and that is, it's very difficult to encounter it. And even if it is very difficult to just spend one's entire life with practice, actually it is question of lifetime to lifetime. So for many lifetimes we actually must engage in practice. So it is very rare. And then it is supreme. They are supreme because everyone who has a mind wishes to be happy. And now we experience some samsaric, mundane happiness in the 6 realms. But actually all of that is the cause of suffering. And the Buddha taught that there is 3 kinds of suffering. And mainly in the 3 lower realms, the beings experience the suffering upon suffering. And in the 3 higher realms, we experience the suffering of change. But no one experiences lasting bliss, lasting happiness that is always devoid of suffering. And that is the bliss, the happiness of a Buddha. This bliss is unchanging and without rising and decline. It is the great bliss of the Dharmakaya. And from this arise the Sambhogakayas and the Nirmanakayas, just like the sun rays emerging from the sun, effortlessly and naturally. These are the qualities of the 3 kayas. So what we call supreme bliss is this unchanging bliss. For example, chakra samvara in Tibetan is Demchok, and so De means bliss and Chok means supreme. So chakra samvara really means supreme bliss. Unchanging bliss is the supreme bliss. It is a bliss that is beyond coming and going or birth and death. It is always lasting. And that is unlike the samsaric bliss, which is impermanent and never lasts. It is said that everything that is contaminated or samsaric is the cause of suffering. Everything that is uncontaminated is the cause of happiness. And so therefore we say that the 3 jewels are also supreme. And the 3 jewels, when they are summarized, they are all subsumed within the Sangha. And in this world, an example of that is His Holiness the Dalai Lama. So all the spiritual teachers are subsumed within His Holiness.
시랍도 삼티 콜리치라 랍시오 말 제제제바 데 제바야 보도 톱송 들이다 트와트리 고카비오 바감이 드린 키보데 지게셀 다지 주통통마도 요 말이 로만탐지테 고주 양 가지 소종가 월이들이 트와트리 감에 키보데 지게셀 로바탕나 마키 얘긴 통고 말이 조금 못제도 조금 못지나마 탐색해야 돼 죽이지만 난게리 이라티 시랍도 삼티 콜링 하마 야고 셔탑요 말이 도다도도 마도 이 참아 저들이 저 돌아마다는 로고를 공서 들이 대체고래지.
And now we have an excellent opportunity, because in the past I was not really able to explain the parameters of meditation and wisdom so well, because I also have not gained that kind of learning and commentary. But now we have an excellent opportunity for you to ask questions. You have Khenpo Tenzin here, who can explain that to you. We have a short time. There's only a short time that we have. And I encourage you to ask him your questions. There's many disciples who really want to learn and want to know things. So you should ask him, because for me it is difficult to read the questions when they're written down and so on. But now we have this opportunity to be able to ask questions. You can ask them to Khenpo, or there's Drupal Rinpoche here, Turko is here. So there's teachers here, all of them here, that you can ask questions. And so in the past, we didn't have that opportunity, and I felt that I wasn't always able to explain the nature of the parameters of meditation and wisdom so well. Maybe I was just able to explain that in a more essential way. But now we have this opportunity, and I ask you to make good use of the time and ask your questions to those lamas.
Oh, Mali Bebe Home, oh, Mali Bebe Home, oh, Mali Bebe.